You fold it and then unfurl it when you get to your destination. All right. They figure that out. And so I tip my hat with my hat, tip my hat to the engineers that enable our discoveries in astrophysics. So yeah, people who are into science, you could also be into engineering and still participate on that frontier of research. So it was all good on the year.
You said something interesting in an interview with Stephen Colbert talking about the Webb telescope. And you said that as our area of knowledge grows, so too does the perimeter of our ignorance. I thought that was beautifully put. You should be a poet in addition to a scientist.
Okay.
How ignorant are we of the vastness of the universe?
That's a great question. And by the way, I wrote an essay some years ago called The Perimeter of Ignorance. The point is, as you learn what is going on in the universe, then your area of knowledge grows. So that this is a highly potent analogy, I think. The area grows, but wait a minute, the perimeter of that area is also growing. So for example, I know to ask questions today because I'm standing in a new place brought to you by the James Webb Space Telescope and the Hubble, if you want to go back a couple of decades. I can ask a question today that I didn't even think to ask 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and in some cases, 5 years ago. So your curiosity, fed by the intention to advance this moving frontier, puts you in a new vista you can see where you've never seen before. So now you're going to say, well, how vast is that field of ignorance? We don't know. But I tell you what we do know. There are two drivers in the universe. We have terms for them, but we don't know what they are. But we call them dark matter and dark energy. These are some of the longest unsolved problems in astrophysics. If you add up their effect on the universe, it is 96% of what's going on. And we do not know or understand what they are or what causes them. Everything you know and love about we all know and love about this universe, the chemistry, the biology, the physics, the aerodynamics, the orbital dynamics, everything we understand is contained in 4% of what's driving the universe. So we're in an odd situation where we know enough about the universe to quantify what we don't know. And that's exciting to the scientist. It's not terrifying, it's exciting.
That is exciting to the scientist. It's exciting to the everyday nerd. It's exciting to lots of us, right? Then there's a part of me, though, that says, yes, as much as I'd like to know more, as much as I'd like to use your quote, to make the entire solar system like a backyard, that sounds great. But that investment, both of time, of intellectual resources, and of money, to some, is what should be devoted to our problems here on the ground on this planet. That there's systemic issues, institutional issues, structural issues that we have to deal with, and that it's a zero-sum game. That when we spend too much time out there, we're not dealing with what's going on down here. What do you say to that argument?
Well, you can ask, how much do you think we're spending in space? The space station, the James Webb, the Hubble, the mission to the moon, the Artemis missions. What fraction of your tax dollar, if you're an American, do you think we're spending? And when I ask that to people, they say, oh, 10%, maybe 15%. We're spending 0.4 of a penny of your tax dollar doing all those activities. So you can take a greenback, take a dollar bill, and cut 0.4% off of the edge, and it doesn't even get you into the ink. So you're saying, why are we spending it there when we should be solving these problems here? We're spending 99.6% of a budget down here. And you want to grab it from this 0.4% and say, that's going to solve the problem? Really? Take a look at the budgets. Take a look at how and where and why we're spending money. To a person, none of them have actually looked at how that 99.6% of the budget is invested. And I think if you did, you might be saying, well, we're spending too much over here. Or over here. There are 29 dozen places you could point to. Meanwhile, when NASA makes a discovery, it is headlines. You know why? Because people care. They want to look up. They want some kind of hope for what science and technology can be and do for their future. And it's transformative. It's space technology that gave you GPS that you take for granted that's sitting on your smartphone. And that's how you can find the quickest way to grandma to grandma's house in traffic.
Yeah.
Without thinking, what these are satellites or sent to Middle Earth orbit. Okay, Middle Earth, not Middle Earth.
I know what you
Lord
mean.
of the Rings,
Right.
but so it's space. How do you know the hurricane is coming and what path it's going to take? Satellite technology brought that to you. No, we're spending money in space and we shouldn't spend it down here. So I can't. Here's what I'm going to do. We'll sneak into your house in the dark of night and remove everything in your home that was inspired or enabled by investments in space technology. And when you wake up in the morning, it might be indistinguishable from a cave, because that's kind of where we'd be without what those investments have delivered to modern civilization.
Now, those investments have also delivered some other stuff. In 2001, you proposed creating a space force, which eventually came into existence in 2019 under President Donald Trump. The U.S. Space Force is now defined as, quote, a military service that organizes, trains, and equips space forces in order to protect U.S. and allied interests in space. You've examined the relationship between astrophysics and the military in Accessory to War, your book, Accessory to War. So I'm curious, at the same time that we think about these extraordinary advances and technological benefits, do you worry about potential consequences of militarizing space?
So a couple of points. In 2001, I was on a White House commission where that was discussed.
Yes.
But we were not the only commission where that was discussed. So the Space Force has been percolating for decades. And so Donald Trump decided to act on it. So Trump haters would associate it with Trump, but really it's been in discussion it long predates Donald Trump, just to be clear about that. Second, no, nobody wants war. Nobody wants that. All right. So I want to first say that the Space Force wasn't created out of the ether. It kind of already existed. How? In what was called the U.S. Space Command, which was a branch of the U.S. Air Force. It already existed. They're the ones who launched the GPS. So when you create a Space Force, what primarily occurred was that this branch of the Air Force was separated out and given its own budget line.
But it feels like we're expanding the theater of war. I mean, I hear Donald Trump saying, he once said that the Space Force was created because, quote, space is the world's newest warfighting domain. And amid grave threats to our national security, American superiority in space is absolutely vital. I agree. I know you don't want war. And I know most sane, normal people don't want war. But there's a lot of money in war, a lot of investment in war.
So now we're in modern times. And ask yourself, how much space assets do we have? And how much of our economy depends on it? What is Uber valued at? In billions? Uber does not exist without space assets. Neither does DirecTV. Neither does the Weather Channel. Neither does the app Tinder, okay? Just to take an absurd limiting example of the financial value of our space assets. So you say to yourself, what should the military be doing as in their goal? Well, I'd want them to protect our assets. I think that's a natural need of a sovereign nation, to have any military that they fund to protect their assets. And our assets in space today are huge.
Yeah,
huge. And it goes way beyond NASA. NASA's a tiny little piece.
I appreciate that. I think, though, the idea that this sort of posture and these investments are purely to protect assets rather than to expand power and maybe empire, that's where the tension comes in, right? It's like we're not just protecting our stuff; we're getting other stuff, and that.
Well, that's a caricature of our presence in space. Okay, so the military is going to protect our assets, make sure we can conduct business, make sure we can do the things we normally do based on all of the things we have put into space. Now, if there is someone else that's perceived as a threat, then we can think of military actions rather than just defensive actions. So offensive actions, or let me not say offensive. Let me say, if there's a satellite that we believe is putting us at risk, then I wouldn't put it past the Space Force to take out that satellite by some way. And there are a lot of ways to do that. But this whole thing with Star Wars, with ships fighting each other, no, that is not what's going on.
Okay.
That's not what's happening here. That's not how space works.
You said something in your book, Starry Messenger, that sticks with me. You said cosmic perspectives can force us to take pause and reflect on the meaning of life and on the value of peace that sustains it. That really resonates with me. What does it mean? What is the significance for all of us regular folk to have a cosmic perspective?
Yeah. So what happens is it takes you out of yourself and out of your own ego. And it forces you to look, I really don't like this word, but I'm going to use it here, holistically at life on Earth, not just humans on Earth, but life on Earth and the ecosystem that sustains us. And it's not just a stratospheric view, it's higher than that. And with your permission, I want to quote Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell. You develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. From out there on the moon, international politics looks so petty. You want to grab a politician by the scruff of the neck and drag him 250,000 miles out and say, look at that, you son of a...
Ooh, that is a cosmic perspective.
I'm telling you that is the cosmic perspective to end all cosmic perspectives. So I have these fantasies where Elon creates a space bus, and with his Airbus, the company, a space bus, get all the warring leaders, put them on the bus, set them to the moon, and have them look back at Earth. And you say, do you see the border between your country and the one you're fighting? No. Do you see the people dying? No. Do you see the havoc you're wreaking? No. That's just Earth. And we're all in it together. And it's all we have. And there's no hope. There's no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. It's up to us to do something about it. Carl Sagan wrote about this in The Pale Blue Dot decades ago. So, yeah, it can transform the world. And yes, bring about everlasting peace. Hate to sound like a beauty pageant contestant, but yes, world peace is possible when you look at Earth from above.
I love it. I love it. Neil deGrasse Tyson, thank you so much for joining us on Upfront.
Thanks for having me.
All right. That is our show, Upfront. We'll be back next week.
We turn now to the stunning image south of the border in Mexico.